Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight in Our News, the Prime Minister addresses criticism over the trip to Dubai. This as the Economic Affairs Minister promises a full accounting of the costs. And outrage over Grand Bahama Power's approved rate hike. Welcome to Our News, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Top of news tonight, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control has pushed its travel advisory on the Bahamas to level 4, urging Americans to avoid travel to the country altogether. On its website, the CDC cited very high levels of COVID-19 and said if you must travel, be sure you are fully vaccinated. It added, even if fully vaccinated, travelers may be at risk for getting and spreading COVID-19 variants. Level 4 is the highest of the advisories issued by the CDC. The Bahamas was bumped to level 3 earlier this month. The country has been battling the fourth wave of cases with daily confirmations in the triple digit and an increasing number of hospitalized cases. In other news, Prime Minister Davis is headed back home tonight from an official visit to the United Arab Emirates. His three-day trip included official visits with heads of state, participation in Bahamas National Day at the World Expo, and the hope of some investments and economic opportunities from that Arab state. He sat down with Jerome Sawyer in Dubai.
It's been an opposition talking point for the past few days and to some extent into the public domain. The question of the cost and size of this delegation to Dubai. Prime Minister Philip Davis was candid when asked.
Not all Bahamians here were sponsored by the government. Many Bahamians came here on their own. And many Bahamians are here just enjoying it because they want to promote the Bahamas as a patriot. And we did, in fact, cut the delegation down.
Government confirmed $1 million price tag. The organizing group raised another $500,000 through corporate sponsorship, with a donation of a rent-free building from the UAE government, which houses the pavilion. At the height of the Bahamas National Day celebrations, a memorandum of understanding was signed with the UAE for technical assistance training with some specific provisions for women.
We talk about digitalization, but yet where are we with those things? Why? Because we do lack some capacity in our country, and where we do have capacity, it needs strengthening. Hence the memorandum of understanding that we're signing. It lays the foundation to at least start the discussion to a pathway to bringing mutual benefits to each country in the areas I've spoken about.
The government is also hoping to sign a similar agreement with Emirates Airlines for possible air service into the region. Yet after years of a visa waiver between the two countries, there is no diplomatic presence here. Bahamas ambassador to the UAE, Tony Jody, raised the question in a one-on-one interview.
If you look at the UAE, you'll find about every embassy is over here. Every single worldwide embassy is found right here in Abu Dhabi. So why we cannot, as a nation, and we have some Caribbean nations have embassies here, or if not embassies, consulates. Why we as a nation, we don't have an embassy or consulate yet in Dubai or Abu Dhabi?
We raised it with the Prime Minister.
We are minded to do so. Those things we're just picking up now, and we'll continue to see how we could forge a more meaningful relationship for the Bahamas, and that would include the establishment of a permanent mission in this region.
As the Prime Minister and his delegation head back home tonight, Expo 2020 will continue here in Dubai for the next few months, as will operations at the Bahamas Pavilion. Now, all of the attention given to this trip, whether it be the cultural displays, the size of the delegations, or the possibilities for investment and training, one thing is for sure, it certainly has put a spotlight on this part of the world. How the government handles that going forward will truly be the benchmark of whether or not this trip was a success. From Dubai, for Our News, I'm Jerome Sawyer.
All right, thanks, Jerome. Well, as part of the Bahamian delegation heads back home from Dubai, Economic Affairs Minister Michael Alkidis assuring the public that a breakdown of how much government actually spent on the trip and associated costs will be made public in a few weeks.
It shouldn't be long. I mean, couple of weeks, I don't think it'll be long at all. I think the important thing is the Bahamians deserve to know but they should also keep in mind that, this is an investment.
The Economic Affairs Minister describing the Bahamas' participation in World Expo 2020 as a worthwhile investment, adding while some investments have long-term benefits, others are short-term.
Look at it not only as a trip to Dubai, one country. It's an expo, 190 countries. You're exposing the Bahamas to investment opportunities, to cultural exchange, to business opportunities, any number of things.
A memorandum of understanding between the UAE and the Bahamas government was signed on Monday as Prime Minister Davis engaged in a number of key meetings. But criticism here at home has not eased up as the selection process of that delegation remains in question, particularly with cultural ambassadors like the National Youth Choir being left out. The Office of the Prime Minister last week said it allocated up to $1 million for the trip. However, officials pointed out it doesn't mean that amount was spent.
Late last year, we allocated an amount of money to assist to make sure that we were able to put on a good show and acquit ourselves well. So I wouldn't technically say it went over budget, but at the end of the day, we will do an accounting and we will see when everybody's back and all the expenses are settled.
The UAE gave $3.5 million for the trip, while the private sector donated $500,000. Halkida says with years of planning for the execution, he's thankful for the delegation's performance. However, he acknowledged there is a need for accountability.
We hear the concerns about the cost. We think it's well spent. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to give a ledger to say, okay, this is what we allocated, this is what we spent, and here are some of the benefits that we think are accruing to us. Some will be immediate and some will be longer term.
The family of a young man gunned down on Key West Street is demanding justice. Sharika Johnson has the story.
A man recently released from prison was killed here on Key West Street last night. His family is crying for justice.
On Christmas Eve, 29-year-old Dave Miller Jr., also known as Lil Dave, was released from the Bahamas Department of Corrections. 3 weeks later, his life was taken.
We was out here last night, and I left him right there standing up talking to some friends and my son. And when I got to hear my mother and my sister, time as I come back out, all I hear was lone shots. So I ended up running, and I ducked down, and when I ducked down, I ended up going to my back because I was so scared. So when I come back in the front yard, they'd already carry him.
The barrage of bullets hit the windshield of a car parked in the yard of his home. Bullet holes were also seen in the door of another vehicle and penetrated the wall of the home where his family lived. Miller's aunt, Rochelle Butler, says although he had some run-ins with the law, he was a sweet individual who would always assist his grandmother.
He was sweet, real sweet. He was sweet. He always say, honey, he's very manly. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? But other than that, everyone have their faults, you know what I mean? But he was very sweet. And the thing about it is, he used to carry my mother. When I finished doing my mother, he'd carry in the front room.
Butler says her family wants justice. She's also calling for forgiveness of the perpetrators responsible for her nephew's death, adding she wishes no harm on his killers.
Let peace reign in the land, man. That's why all this killing would stop.
2 other men were injured during the ordeal. They remain in hospital. For our news, I'm Sharika Johnson.
As the country continues to grapple with this 4th wave of COVID-19 infections and an increase in hospitalizations, Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville remains optimistic that face-to-face instruction for public schools can resume. Schools were set to reopen last week, but the resumption of in-person learning was delayed due to the rise in cases.
I remain optimistic. We're looking at the numbers and we're beginning to see some signs that we may be moving in the right direction. But with that being said, things can change. But I am of the view, like many people throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that the time has come for us to be able to have some sort of face-to-face, whether it be a hybrid model or direct for our kids.
During his tour of several schools, Prime Minister Davis said government's aim is to use a hybrid model as of this month. Darville said he thinks it's time to move forward with in-person learning, but it's a topic that Cabinet has to discuss.
Many things had to be put in place. One, we had to ensure that free testing was available because that'll be a part of the protocol if we happen to have a child or children who become positive. What are the strategy for testing? 2, we needed to make sure that our teachers are safe. 3, the Ministry of Education made sure that the schools are ready. And 4, I need to make sure that our hospital system remains open in the event that we do have kids who may be positive.
2 former cabinet ministers are defending the National Food Distribution Task Force following claims there are no records of how much money was spent or where the money went. F&M leader Michael Pintar feels it's just a distraction from the Dubai trip controversy. Here's Berthany McDermott.
Free National Movement members defending the National Food Distribution Task Force, and according to former Social Services Minister Frankie Campbell, all transactions were transparent. He said he's satisfied that an account can be given from both the task force and the Ministry of Finance.
I'm satisfied to the best of my knowledge that cabinet approval was given, funds were distributed from the Treasury, funds were channeled through the through the Department of Social Services and ended up in the hands of the NGOs, which resulted in best prices being sought from wholesalers.
Campbell said he is pleased that the task force was able to assist Bahamians throughout the islands. Financial Secretary Simon Wilson said the government had no information on files concerning the task force. The discovery came during the Ministry of Finance's initial review of the Minister administration's spending during the state of emergency, which lasted from March 2020 to November 2021. FNM leader Michael Pintard also weighed in.
It is unfortunate that a partial report with gaps in it have been released, and then the government has sought to fill the gaps with insinuations when it could have been clearly definitive about what it believes the issues are.
Pintard said there are cabinet papers that would reveal details like how much was allocated. Communications Director in the Office of the Prime Minister, Latrey Ramming, said $9.1 million was paid to an NGO that didn't appear to be an NGO engaged with the task force. However, Pintard said the figure revealed by Ramming was likely for distribution efforts on Grand Bahama. He is questioning if this is a distraction from the political firestorm surrounding the Bahamas' presence at World Expo 2020.
The timing of this partial report, that the government should have had access to all the details, is rather curious given the fact that the government is seeking to put in context a trip to Dubai that the Bahamian public is and the Free National Movement is raising questions about, only in the context of giving a full and frank explanation of the objectives, whether or not the persons who went were the appropriate persons based on each specific area, and what was the expenditure.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Anthony McDermott.
Clear conditions tonight. Meteorologist Greg Thompson has our first look at weather.
Thanks, Scott, and a happy Tuesday evening, everybody. I hope you're getting outside and enjoying this weather outdoors. Very cool temperatures right now. Temperatures in the mid-60s, 66 outside our studios under clear skies. Very light winds, north-northeast at 5 miles per hour, and that feels like temperature in the low 60s. And we will continue to see those temperatures fall off later on tonight. Satellite view, high pressure remains in charge of our weather, filtering that nice, cool, dry air mass across area. Very blue skies across most of the island chain today. Frontal boundary near the southeast Bahamas, exiting the area, some cloudy conditions across that portions of the Bahama chain. A couple isolated showers, but all in all, very nice conditions expected tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, the Omicron variant placing a strain on the healthcare system, and outrage over Grand Bahama Power's rate adjustment approval. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
COVID-19 hospitalizations have increased to 141, according to the latest dashboard, which also revealed another 255 cases. As of Sunday, there were 82 COVID patients at Princess Margaret Hospital and 33 under the care of Grand Bahama Health Services. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Dowell says the surge in COVID cases is placing a strain on the public healthcare system.
Well, it's quite obviously Omicron is putting a serious strain on our healthcare systems, not only the hospitals, even at our clinics. This is a challenge, and this is a challenge every country is facing, to keep healthcare services up and going, while at the same time providing essential services for those who have other medical conditions.
8 of the hospitalized cases are said to be in intensive care, while 133 are moderately ill. While tents are still in use at PMH, Darville said the search continues for field hospitals to add more capacity.
Unfortunately for us in the Bahamas and this administration, we are a new administration, and these requests were made 2 weeks after becoming government. The Omicron variant came very rapidly, and a lot of the preliminary work and search for these field hospitals is still ongoing, and I've gotten some good replies. But for us, we must be able to function now, and when those facilities come on stream, we would actually add them to what we have.
Well, despite opposition from government ministers and the Coalition of Concerned Citizens, Grand Bahamians will see an increase in their electricity bills in April. The Grand Bahama Port Authority approved a recent request by the Grand Bahama Power Company for the rate adjustment. Megan Shepard has more.
In a statement issued by the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the regulators note that the Grand Bahama Power Company initially applied for an increase of 6.3%, and they are pleased to issue the final rate at 3.3%. A cabinet subcommittee was formed late last year to address this impending decision. Minister for Grand Bahama, Ginger Moxie, stating that while she is against any increase for the people of Grand Bahama, she believes their continued meetings contributed to the rate approval adjustment.
We did meet with the Grand Bahama Port Authority and the Grand Bahama Power Company to express our strong stance against any type of rate increase. We note in the press statement and in a letter that was sent yesterday that there was an increase, approved increase from, but it was reduced from the 6.3% to the 3.3%, and we believe that this is based on our strong position.
President of the Coalition of Concerned Citizens, Pastor Eddie Victor, calling it another sad day for Grand Bahama. He says following the government's clear stance and the outcry of residents, he believes there should have been only one decision made.
It's the worst economic time. The Grand Bahamas is still in major recovery, major. Also, you are increasing the rates when the power company is making money and record profits. You see, everything doesn't add up.
Pastor Victor adding that he has been fighting for lower electricity rates for over 7 years now, but to no avail. He believes the increases have been to the detriment of the island.
We have seen is that they continue to increase the cost of electricity. And there's no intention by the power company, neither the regulator, to bring down the cost of electricity, because their decisions has caused many investors to turn away from Grand Bahama.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
When Our News returns, inside Fidelity Bank's rebranding and an injury sidelines a Bahamian hoop star. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Fidelity Bank starting the new year with a new brand. Officials also announced several initiatives for New Providence and the Family Islands during a news conference. Sharika Johnson was there.
Following the devastating effects of Hurricane Dorian, Fidelity Bank has spent $1 million to restore its Marsh Harbour branch. Chief Executive Officer Garwin Bowe says the company has spent 18 months on rebuilding efforts.
We are making sure that it is resilient as it relates to hurricane, and as best we can. I mean, waters that come up 8, 10 feet, not much you can do about that. But as it relates to all of the penetration.
Bowe says the bank's presence in Abaco after its completion will help to restore the community and will encourage more people to return to the island.
We appreciate that as an employer, that we have to find housing, services, and accommodations for our employees down there. But more importantly, as persons see the willingness to get back into a devastated community, then that breeds confidence and that breeds encouragement.
His comments came during the bank's rebranding exercise. Fidelity Bank is sporting a new color. The bright orange is a nod to its commitment to meet the physical and financial needs of its customers.
When you think about orange, you think about vitamin C. You think about our physical health. At Fidelity, we always preach and have financial coaching and talking about financial health. We want to now bring those two together to understand that when you have financial health, it helps with your mental health, and that helps with your physical health.
Fidelity's ATMs are now outfitted with orange, and more will be placed around the country to limit customers going into the bank. President of Fidelity, Greg Bethel, says they are eager to meet the needs of customers as the bank goes fully digital.
Get healthy not only in your body, but as Garwin said earlier, in your finances. We've always had free financial coaching. We don't try to push a product on you or a service. We want to build a relationship with you, be there for you, be there for your family.
For our news, I'm Sharika Johnson.
Bahamian NBA star DeAndre Ayton out with an injury. Marcellus Hall has more in sports.
Thanks a lot. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Phoenix Suns, what a story they have been so far in the NBA season. They have been one of the top runners to come out of the Western Conference, and not only that, perhaps contend for an NBA title. We're a ways away from that, but they continue to play well. Playing without our Bahamian DeAndre Ayton last night, out with an ankle injury. Nevertheless, let's take a look at their progress. DeAndre Ayton sitting out the game due to a sore right ankle. Nonetheless, Suns taking the floor as they faced off against the San Antonio Spurs. DeAndre forced to watch from the sidelines, but he would have a good view because it was all Phoenix Suns as they were able to roll to a victory here. Actually had to rally from behind in the fourth quarter to beat the San Antonio Spurs, 121-107. How about Devin Booker, season-high 48 points, and Chris Paul added 15 points, 12 assists. Phoenix wins their sixth straight on the road, fifth consecutive against San Antonio. Good job for them as they get ready now for their next matchup. DeAndre hoping to be ready for that one. That's going to come your way on Thursday when they take on the Dallas Mavericks. On to the NFL, where the NFL wild card wrapped up with the Monday night matchup there between the Rams as they took on they faced off against their opponents, the Cardinals. Boy, it was all Rams early on as Matthew Stafford and the Rams jump out to a 28-0 lead. Arizona does score a couple of touchdowns late, a couple of points late, but it was all Rams in this one. They move on 34-11, ends up being your final score. So the divisional matchups are all set. As we wrap up our wildcard game, should be an interesting time this upcoming weekend as the playoffs continue in the NFL. And there it is. You look at sports for you here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Up next, a look at the weekday weather forecast. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to Our News. Cloudy days ahead. Greg joins us with the extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Kyle, and a happy Tuesday evening, everybody. High pressure in charge of our weather. That frontal boundary that pushed through the capital and the islands now just to the south of the southeast Bahamas, entering Hispaniola. Some isolated showers associated with that frontal boundary near the southeast Bahamas. But we will see conditions improving as a high pressure system in the Gulf of Mexico moves towards the east, and that high is going to get very near, the center of it actually is going to get very near the northern Bahamas. So our winds will be falling off, and those cloudless skies will continue. We will continue to enjoy this weather over the next couple of days before we see another frontal boundary get near by the weekend. Boating conditions for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will fall off light and variable tonight, but they will become more northeast to east tomorrow, 10 to 15 knot seas, 2 to 4 feet over the ocean, but up to 6 feet. So we have some swells out there, caution flag posted. Your high tide can be expected at 8:15 tonight. For the southeast Bahamas, those winds would be more northeasterly at 15 to 20 knots, caution flag for you guys down there. Seas will be running 4 to 6 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Tuesday. Lovely weather expected for the next couple of days. Get out and enjoy it. Back to you, Kyle.
Well, thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. We will see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a good Tuesday evening, Bahamas.